Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Pac-Mountain Pulse, a Mountain West Connection podcast. My name is Derek Raridan. With me is Dom Gutierrez. Thank you for joining me, my friend. How are we doing?
It's going well. How are you, Derek?
I'm doing all right in the midst of what's it called, fall camp stuff right now. Going to Nevada whenever I can, so it's been fun, but also a little tiresome. So
Yeah,
I know you've been on the what's it called. You've had your own stuff going on too, so it's very much we've been busy men to say the least. uh,
sticking to it. Yeah.
but amen to that. So, but yeah, so thanks again for joining us, everybody. Today on the docket, if you you read the title, everything, you see what's up. But just to briefly run it through. So first, we're going to talk about the new 5-for-5 eligibility rule with the Protect College Sports Act. We took the last week off because we had some stuff happening last week, so we didn't get to talk about this, especially the special injunction that came up from that. But so we'll talk about that stuff, our opinions about how we feel about it, how it's going to affect college sports and everything, especially on the mid-major level as well. Then after that, we're going to talk about the Mountain West and the Pac-12, both conferences, and how we feel they're going to get more production from, whether it be from the run game or the pass game. And then lastly, we'll end off with a poll. The coaches poll for the upcoming 2026 season for football was released last week as well, or sometime within the last week. And there's a couple schools from the Pac-12 and the Mountain West that got some votes. So we're going to talk about which school we think will be the front runner at the end of the season, and go from there. So, but without further ado, let's get into the first topic, which is the 5-for-5 college sports eligibility rule. So, like I mentioned, this is going to be part of the Protect College Sports Act. Just to kind of run through it really quickly, the NCAA has accepted it as well. It's supposed to be for next season, but we'll talk about that in a second. Um, so essentially, instead of doing you got 5 years to play 4 seasons, they changed it to where you have 5 seasons to play five, or 5 years to play 5 seasons. Excuse me. This was adopted by the NCAA and was supposed to hit next season. However, a district judge, her name is Charlotte Sweeney, in Colorado, put a class-wide preliminary. I swear I can read. Preliminary injunction for people who graduated in 2022, saying
Mhm.
they can actually enjoy the benefits of that rule. And the NCAA has stepped in, saying that there needs to be a case by case situation. So that's a whole different debacle. Um, but we're not going to get into the whole debacle about that today. The biggest thing is, and the question we're going to start with is, how will this affect college sports this season? Will it be better for it? Will it be worse off? And going forward afterwards? And I'll pose that question to you first, Tom.
Well, I think when it comes to the student athletes, and for one, I think that this is going to be something that's good for the state of college sports, just athletics in general. Because when you look at it, and we could go on and on about how crazy, NIL and transfer portal and all this other stuff has gotten. And then when you're tying in all these factors with red shirts and medical red shirts and the COVID years and you're seeing some players who are staying in college for 7, 8 years, and it's like, um, you and I have mentioned this before, how it all kind of stems to you go to college because you're supposed to be getting an education and you're supposed to be planning your life out, as a young adult, figuring out how you're going to fit into this world. Because even as you go to school as an athlete and, you compete in sports, that's only going to last so long, whether that stops when you get out of college or if you are fortunate enough to make it to a national league. But, um, it's just, we kind of lost the plot, I feel like, of what college is supposed to be. And I feel like now when you make it clear of, okay, you have 5 years, you have 5 seasons, you go through that, whether you're hurt or not, you make your progressions, you're also getting your education done. And then I feel like it creates a clearer timeline for student athletes for their future. I feel like it creates a clearer timeline for schools in terms of recruiting and that sort of nature. Just because it'll be a lot easier to pinpoint, okay, these these athletes are leaving at this year, these ones are coming in. We have them for this many years. Um, and like I said, the whole portal and everything else is a whole nother thing. But I think in terms of this one, I just feel like it helps. It's a lot more clear cut in terms of eligibility, and it's a lot more clear of, when you get to college, if you start, in the fall of this year, this is what's going to happen. If you start in the spring or the fall of this next year, this is how it's going to go. I feel like that makes it easier on the families as well, and then they have a better idea of, hey, I know that my child, this is going to be their timeline for when they're going to be in school. It's not going to get all, that weird mumbo jumbo in terms of, if there's an injury or something, or, if they're freshman, sophomore coming in, and then they're kind of getting, I don't want to say saved by a red shirt, but it adds a lot more, like I say, clear cut timelines and ideas around whether they're going to be playing and just in general how they're going to be progressing through their time in college.
Oh, and you're 100% correct on that part. I think, um, just like again, we talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
College should be a place where we come to get a degree. It's
Yeah.
to forward our lives, and if we just so happen to be athletes in that time, God bless, because that can provide opportunities on the road. Um, I think the biggest thing for me that kind of hits from this, and like I said, I do agree with the fact that this is going to be a good thing, is just simply put, and this is something that Mastro, or Coach Mastro, the running backs coach from Nevada, talked about a little, very briefly today, during fall camp interviews. Um, it's very good to be able to play as an actual freshman,
Mm-hmm.
because I think so many people, and this is like, again, think to almost any freshman, because there's very few true freshmen that play in a star-studded role, but think like Herschel Turner from Nevada. That's the first one I think of all the time. He was a redshirt his first year at Utah State, got redshirted, and then he transferred to Nevada. So technically speaking, right now, based on the 5-for-5 rules, he's a junior.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if he had the availability to play for Utah State his freshman year without having to be saved.
Yeah.
So and that's just one example, let alone the probably somewhere in the hundreds of college athletes right now in football specifically who are going to be who would benefit from getting 6 games in their freshman year or even more. And
No,
so,
exactly. And I think that's a like not a knock on head coaches or anything either, but um I feel like with how all wonky the rules have gotten, it allows them to be comfortable, I would say, with the red shirts and everything, because then they could say, oh, these are younger guys, but I don't need to worry about playing them because I can just have them redshirt and I still get to keep them for another year. Like now I feel like that's going to have to open up how you evaluate your rosters. And now, if you're only going to have these guys for 5 years no matter what, and maybe even less than that if they want to transfer out, now it forces, you're going to have to be a lot more open with your depth chart. You're going to have to be a lot more open to getting some of these guys, like you said, 5 or 6 games and trying to get them into actual roles, because now the timeline is a lot more strict. And so you can't just say, oh, I'm going to redshirt you for 2 years, or we can get away with saying you're going to be hurt and, that's a medical redshirt. And then I'll still get to keep you for another additional 4 years.
oh yeah. And it opens up what's it called? Transparent, like it's kind of just the biggest conversation point we've had for the past couple minutes is it just opens up transparency. It
Mm-hmm.
makes it to where, hey, like whether it's your first year, whether you turn 19 years old, you start now. You have 5 years to play these, 5 seasons. You do whatever you want with them. You can transfer, you can go, you can stay with one program, you can jump to five, like we saw a bunch in like college basketball, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially Mountain West, and I think it was Auburn had like one or two players that had that as well. But it makes it to where there's no like different language. Everybody plays on the exact same rules. Everybody plays with the exact same setup. You cannot fudge anything now. And again, it's going to be better in the long term. You won't have 7-year players. Now, of course, that was mainly for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that and I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But you won't have a 7-year quarterback. Again, I'm thinking like the Old Miss one. I think Trinidad, I want to say his name is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm thinking about him because it's like he tried to get in another year. That dude is 24 years old if he came in when he was 17. and what's it called? He turned 17 before his freshman year.
Hmm.
So what are we trying to put out here? Like it's again, it should the primary focus of college should be your degree. 1,000%. Too many players just kind of forego that and just say, "Oh, it's my next step." But at the same token, there needs to be acknowledgement for those who are genuinely playing the system the way it should be played, and that's what I
Well,
think
and
this
it,
rule does.
yeah, and like you were talking about with Ole Miss and everything else, like, and then I just feel like it creates um where it's standing at right now. That's how you get a lot of loopholes when it comes to stuff like NIL and everything too, because especially for these higher end athletes, you see how much money you could make with NIL. Sometimes you're making more than if you were to go into the draft initially. So then some of these athletes are using a lot of these loopholes to stay in college longer. They get more NIL money. And then you end up seeing um, just an increase in, like you said, we're having 23, 24, almost 25-year-olds still playing college ball, and it's like at some point you got to say, like not to, like I said, not to bring judgment in anything, and like you said, especially with the COVID years, but at some point it's got to be like you got to let it go, like you got to move on to, whether you're good enough to go to the next step, or you just got to accept that it's it. Like, I mean, just from last year, I believe it was, yeah, Auburn, the men's basketball team, their average age was 23, which is almost two. I want to say it's 2 to 3 years older than the average NBA team. Like, I want to say it was the Washington Wizards, I believe, because they're a younger team. I want to say their average age last year was they were about 21 years old, and then you have a college basketball team in Auburn that's 23. So obviously, that's an issue. These athletes, like, I felt like that was a big thing. More like back in our day, I guess we could say, just like growing up a little bit with college sports where it was more you do 3 to 4 years, right? Sometimes you leave college early for, basketball, football, whatever. You're young, that's supposed to be the how it goes. You get drafted young, you start your career young, you go through the progressions. When some of these guys are now starting their professional careers at, anywhere between 24 and 26, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, same thing with, what was it, Carson Beck? He was, he played 6 or 7 years, I think, with, between his college career, before finishing it out with Miami, and then now he's what, 24, I want to say, or going to be 24 going in with the Cardinals this year. So it's like he says, I feel like it'll create a lot more, the loopholes go away. It creates a lot more fairness, like you said. And then, like the point I made with the whole NIL thing, I feel like that creates a lot of um, clarity, I guess, in terms of that, and helps kind of solves a few problems in one. But yeah, like you said, it's going to make it's going to make everything, I feel like, a lot more clear, because then you can't say, oh, well, this player can get an injection to do this, or they had this red shirt this time, or, there's like what we've been saying for the past 12 minutes, like, it's just, it needs to be certain things like this. I feel like it needs to be black and white.
Oh, 100%. And just to kind of carry your point, the Washington Wizards average age last year was 23, I think, 0.78. I just looked it up.
Okay.
And yeah, 23.78. The starting roster was 20.64.
Yeah.
But the starting roster on Auburn was somewhere close to probably 23, 24. Let's be real here.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, just to kind of carry the point and to like put figures to that, like absolutely. So, but yeah, so we'll see what's up. Again, we'll talk about the injunction probably sometime next week and see, like, give it a little bit of time to see how much that truly does affect college sports, because
Hmm.
I can think of probably 5 people from Nevada just based on like baseball, softball, that probably could make a comeback. Say either of them wanted to, either the coaches wanted to do that, but again, conversation for probably next week.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so moving on to our second topic of today or tonight, is a little bit of a debate. So we had this article posted on Mountain West Connection, I believe it was, or at least it was a conversation we had later, somewhere along the lines, where it was the Mountain West and the Pac-12. So football season is just a couple weeks away. I want to say it's week zero's in 2 weeks, and for the rest of the country, week one's in 3. And so I wanted to talk about this is because I thought it'd be a cool conversational point. Is which conference or like how will the conferences do next season in terms of run performance and passing performance, and which conferences will be more pass heavy and which ones will be more run heavy. And I'll take the first point on this one. I'll take the Mountain West first. Truly, and it kind of makes a little bit of sense. I genuinely believe that the Mountain West will be a more run heavy conference. Doesn't, you know, that does get helped by the fact that Air Force is also running probably somewhere close to a triple option again this year.
Mhm.
I would imagine because most military schools do. But when it comes down to the performance of, or like the outlook for these teams, the only two quarterbacks truly that stand out to me are Hawaii's. I need to find the name. Hawaii's Micaiah Alejado. Is that how you say his last name? I feel
Mhm.
bad. I should have learned that. But Micah is his name. Excuse me.
Okay.
Micah Alejado. Thank you. And then UNLV's Jackson Arnold because he's from Auburn, was a former 5-star. We talked about that before. Like that just makes sense.
Mhm.
But the rest of the schools, it's not, they haven't been the focal point of a lot of conversations when it comes to top players, when it comes to any sort of like hype, like big hype around their quarterbacks or anything. But I see a lot more in their running game, right? So you see, again, kind of knocking on Nevada, you got Herschel Turner, you got Kai Woods returning. You got Dominic Kelly, who's still is a returner as well, who could be really, really good. Um, so and those are just three dudes who are going to be outstanding if they truly do grow correctly. Especially Turner, who is in his junior year, Kai Woods is in his senior year. Um, you have and even with a good quarterback, you have Jet Thomas from UNLV, who was the first team All Mountain West running back last year. He's going to be dominant if everything stays true to what he was planning on, most likely this year. Um, you got New Mexico, who, they have Jack Lane coming in, who was a Idaho FCS prospect. Still did really pretty good. Pretty good is an understatement, probably, considering that they what New Mexico did last year. But you
Mhm.
still have a good mix of returners and transfers coming into the Lobos this year on their running back room. You can't doubt North Dakota State for anything at this point. I'm always hesitant to talk about them and like making any predictions just simply because like we don't know exactly what's going to happen with them, but we know that we have high expectations, and so it's just like they're going to be on the watch list for stuff there too. It's
Mhm.
just there's just so much more hype and too many question marks within the Mountain West to truly give them a good quarterback status, but there's so many indicators for the running backs, and I think that's where it's going to really prosper is the run game. But we'll see because I know like even Nevada's implementing a sort of air raid offense this year
Mhm.
from what conversations have been had and everything, or some sort of mix. So it should be fun to see them maybe do some stuff there too. But I just see the Mountain West as like I'm just gonna pound the ball down the middle or through the outside. I'm going to go for like 20 yards. We're going to set up a pat. We're going to set up the run with the pass kind of mentality from like I think the 1990s, 2000s era of NFL. But we'll
Well,
see
and
what
I
happens
think,
on that one.
yeah, and I was like, how you mentioned with Jaden Thomas, I was like, we, just on our site alone for Mountain West Connection, the writers ranked him the number one preseason player going into the season in terms of the Mountain West. He's just obviously a freak of nature. You still have, some of the guys you mentioned. You also have guys like Lucky Sutton from San Diego State. You have guys like Owen Allen from Air Force, like we were talking about with triple option and everything else. Like these teams are, like you said, that's where you're going to see more of the uh, relying on the run game, and um, not that there's not good quarterbacks. 'Cause like we said, there's a few teams who I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Hawaii or UNLV, you see their quarterback end up taking either finishing as a first team player at the end of the season, or even ends up taking the most valuable player, or at least offensive player of the year by the end of the year.
Yeah. No, 100%. And we'll have to again. Like, I am very. I am very open to being proven wrong on that. If the
Hmm.
Mountain West has like five quarterbacks that chuck for like 3,000 yards plus or something, I'm
Yeah.
not going to be upset. I'm not. That's going to make for good content and good football. But at the end of the day, it's just like, just with how much goes into it, we just need to see what San Jose State does, what UNLV does. Like, UNLV is obviously the favorite for the Mountain West, so
Hmm.
we'll see how they decide to implement things. But it should be the more like, I'm not gonna say traditional, but the more like old school pound the ball thing, like I mentioned like a minute or two ago. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing how they change it, maybe, but we'll see. And then for the Pac-12, I mean, it's kind of the not necessarily the exact opposite, but you can't count out a quarterback area that has Brad Jackson,
Hmm.
that has what's it called, Maddox Madsen, who has been a threat within all of the Mountain West for the past couple of years now. Um, and you have other guys too, like Colorado State has House. Oh God, Hegeni, is that how you say his last name? I
House
apologize for
Henny.
butchering your name if I did. Henny, thank you.
Yeah, and then
Um,
Caden Pinnick is from Washington State. He's a big one that I actually like coming off as a because he's only a sophomore now, and he uh, came from UC Davis, I believe, and
mhm.
freshman of the year honors over there. He almost over 3,000 yards, I believe. Yeah, so he's another one that they're going to have a pretty big success with.
Not to mention dynamic as well. He had just over 300, 400. Let me see. I just looked it up. He had over 400 rushing yards and three touchdown runs too. So not
Hmm.
to the same amount that, Brad Jackson had, but still a good dynamic quarterback. But we still have
Yeah.
some other guys too, like what's it called? Who was I? Talked about it with someone. I think it was Fresno. Like Christian Martin, who's the Maryland
Mm-hmm.
transfer for Fresno State.
Mm-hmm.
You can never go wrong with a 6'4" quarterback.
Yeah.
In my opinion, you really can't. And again, three star quarterback, good physicals. Didn't see too much play last year because he redshirted, but or excuse me, he redshirted in 2024, but he played very little in Maryland in his redshirt freshman season. But at the end of the day, like there's again kind of the flip side of things. I'm more confident that we're going to see higher quarterback play in the Pac-12, but there's more question marks in my case for the Pac-12 running backs. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And that's no. And again, we keep on missing. I'm not bringing up the wide receivers because they're a whole other part of this equation that we have to consider as well. And there's been really good movement in the conference, both between teams and for people coming in for wide receiver rooms and stuff. So I'm not going to try to discount them because an outstanding wide receiver room can make a quarterback look really really good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
and I'll
just a
add a
case
correction
of
on that
like let's
because
see
how
what
you were talking
happens.
about with the running back room, because I mentioned Lucky Sutton just a second ago, and I'm still getting used to the fact that some of these schools aren't in the Mountain West, so that was more of
Yeah,
a positive for the Pac-12, not the Mountain West. But
yeah.
the case
I
still
didn't.
stands.
I thought, like, I'll be completely frank, I didn't have the rosters pulled up on my computer. I was more on the broadcast side, so I didn't know exactly. I was like, did you mean San Jose or was that somewhere else? But
Yeah.
no, exactly. Like, again, like, I'm not discounting the quarterbacks from the Mountain West, and I'm not discounting the running backs from the Pac-12
Hmm.
in any sort of shape. It's just, again, like coming into the season, there's so many more conversational points about Mountain West running backs and Pac-12 quarterbacks that we like. Again, like I am going to be super happy if we have two or three Pac-12 running backs that have 1,000 yards plus and like 10 tutties.
Yeah.
The same way, again, like I said earlier, like it's like I'm rehashing the same skit. So apologies if that sounded redundant, but like again, like there's so many things that can play into the season, especially with new conferences, new power dynamics, new everything that we realistically just can't. We can't sit here and just necessarily say, "Oh, it's going to be a quarterback heavy one." Or a
Hmm.
quarterback heavy year for one conference. Now, after non-conference, we can have that conversation and be like, okay, well, maybe Maddox wasn't doing as great as he should, but maybe this quarterback's stepping up. Or again, like maybe Jets, you know, is a little bit of a down year, but then three quarterbacks or three running backs from different teams pop up too. You never know what's going to happen, but just based on how it's coming into the season. Like I'm looking forward to like old school like West Coast style pound the ball from the Mountain West, and I'm looking forward to seeing more dynamic play from the Pac-12, just from like again look from before. But conversations like this just make me very very happy because it just makes me happy for football season. That's
Yeah.
my favorite sport. So
Hmm. Agree.
so we'll have to see what's up with that, but I'm looking forward to it. And if you want to see all the rosters that we were looking at, all the updates and everything, go check out. It is Jack Thompson's Mountain West and Pac-12 Depth Chart Tracker app. It's on any one of his podcast episodes. Check out Hikes Peak podcast. Check that out. Look at the same stuff that we're looking at because it's good. Again, I'm a stats nerd too, so it works out for me.
He was a wizard with that for sure.
Dude, like again, like I mentioned it when I did the episode with him 3 weeks ago, and everything else. Like that man knows how to do things correctly, and
Hmm.
that's a prime example of it. So please go check that out if you want to check out everything surrounding the Mountain West and Pac-12 depth charts.
Yep.
Um, so now we have our final topic of today, which is going to be the American Football Coaches Association, or AFCA, coaches poll that was released by ESPN again sometime in the last week or two. The big names like again Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, they all round out the top. But the thing that we care about the most, because we don't care about those schools fully, I'm gonna get in trouble for that one. Is the Pac-12 and Mountain West members that did get votes. So just
Hmm.
to kind of break it down real quick, Boise State was the highest in the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, but also in the group of six with 24 votes. UNLV was 2 spots lower at 17. Then I'm trying to find it. Memphis and James Madison got mentioned with votes. New Mexico was the next with 4. Again, we see like West Michigan, Navy, San Diego State got 2, and then we got Hawaii with 1. They are tied with Jacksonville State and Cal, just running out the bottom, and also Kansas State just running out the bottom of the list.
Hmm.
Um, so you got 4 schools. We got Boise, UNLV, um, New Mexico, and 5 schools. Excuse me. I know how to count, I promise. Boise State, UNLV, New Mexico, San Diego State, and Hawaii all getting votes. They're all getting little nods by coaches. So thank you, coaches, for giving us nods. Um, but out of those 5 schools, which one do you think, Dom, is going to be the front runner for vote for either AP, whether it be again American football coaches or whatever poll? Which ones do you think we're going to end the season with the most votes?
I mean, and I guess we could kind of, I'll divide it up by conference, just so at least so we can get at least one of each.
Mhm.
In terms of the pack, I mean, Boise State is, until proven otherwise, and obviously it's going to be interesting since it's a new conference for them, even though it's a lot of the same schools they are used to. But um, like I said, until proven otherwise, Boise State's I feel like is going to be my pick at least for that. Um, they haven't shown too many signs of taking a step back, and then there's a reason why they've been upgrading everything they have. There's a reason why they moved to the Pac-12. And honestly, if out of all the schools that did move, I feel like they were one of the one of the few ones that or have actually proven that they deserve to make a jump, to another conference. But I'll say by the and even if they're not top 25, I feel like they'll definitely be there's on the season kind of in the similar spot of where they receive quite a bit of votes. And then when we look at in terms of the Mountain West, obviously UNLV I feel like is going to be favored by a lot of people. But it is cool to see that New Mexico and Hawaii are getting their flowers because I felt like, especially just in last year alone, um, those were 2 schools that I feel like were slowly kind of catching the eye of um, college football fans around social media. I just remember seeing a lot of, um, more bigger social media brands posting certain videos on both those schools, especially Hawaii, just because of how their games would consistently end in dramatic fashion, and then New Mexico, obviously, just with the whole storyline with Jason Nick and everything. But um, so as much as UNLV, I feel like is gonna get a lot of credit, and I'm not just saying this as a Nevada alum, but I do think that when it comes down to it, New Mexico and or Hawaii are going to be more toward the top in terms of voting over UNLV.
We have to always acknowledge the bias a little bit, just because I am also wearing the Nevada shirt too, so it doesn't help.
Have to
Yeah,
show it a
but
little
either
bit.
way, exactly, yeah. Um, but no, so I 100% agree. I think when it boils down to it, there's especially when it comes to defensive presence, I'm just not certain how the Aztecs are going to do totally. If they revamp, and we had this conversation a month ago, but if they revamp and they do have a really really good offensive season, then cool, the defense won't matter and they will still get votes and they'll still get points and everything. But again, like until proven otherwise, I'm 100% with you. Boise State will always be the favorite in my head. What they didn't get any votes, but again, I'm always high on Texas State and Brad Johnson as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm never gonna sit here. I think I've been saying Brad Jack. It's supposed to be Brad Jackson. I guarantee it. Yep, it's Brad Jackson. Hey, apologies, Brad, if you ever watch our podcast. Sorry, Texas State fans. I apologize, but Brad Jackson. I've been switching in and out. I want to double check, but um, I do think Texas State will get votes at some point this season. It's just a matter of um again, like Boise has the presence. That's the sole
Exactly.
reason why they're the Mountain West football champions last year. And going into this season is simply because of the really, in my opinion, crappy way the Mountain West computes tiebreakers on that for football. Like, what's it called? They had higher voting. They were in the CFP in the
Mm-hmm.
inaugural 12 team season. They had all this other stuff and everything. So when it boils down to it, the Broncos will almost always be favored almost over any other school in the Pac-12 until proven otherwise. And then Mountain West wise, yeah, like you said, UNLV is going to be the favorite. I don't think there will be um as far of a gap as there is. Like again, kind of like alluding to what you said. I think where the Pac-12 is kind of like, if this is Boise State, this is like again SDSU, Texas State, whoever you want to put right here.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're kind of farther apart, it's like you got UNLV, and then there's New Mexico, then there's Hawaii, then there's NDSU, then
Yeah.
there's everybody else that kind of falls in line there. It's
Mm-hmm.
a much tighter race. And again, as someone who has covered the Mountain West for the last couple of years, specifically Nevada, but overall, just keep an eye on everything. It is really, really nice to see the Mountain West getting its flowers. Like you said, it's not any sort of thing of like whatever. I want the Mountain West to still come out of all the realignment stuff and everything as a top mid major school,
Yep.
and so or conference, excuse me. So when I see that, it gives me hope that it's not just us parroting what the coaches, what the athletic directors, what they're all saying. It shows that even though like when we get to more basketball season, it'll probably be more back to Pac-12 because when you have Gonzaga, SDSU, Utah State,
Mm-hmm.
so and so
Yep.
be prevalent members of national tournaments for the last couple of years, if not longer. In football, at least the Mountain West is getting that respect because
Yeah.
there's just so many more question marks that can pop up with a bigger mid-major conference and everything of that matter, especially a whole new additions, new losses, and everything. So it makes me feel good, or it makes me yeah feel good in my soul that the Mountain West is getting that flower. And I think realistically, if we're to bring up dark horses, I'm not going to say it's going to be the top of the Mountain West when it comes down to it, when it comes to votes and everything, just because they're brand new and everything. I'm looking forward to
Mm-hmm.
NDSU. I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to seeing them and see if they can get some good stuff too. Because I think while it isn't, well, excuse me, while it shouldn't be the expectation, there is a slight possibility that NDSU gets 10 wins this season. And if
Right.
they do, then the Bison are going to absolutely at least get 5 votes, in my opinion. At least get 5.
Well, and they
And
just have a lot of, they have a big chip on their shoulder. They were obviously so successful in the FCS level, and this is the rumor of them joining was going around for I don't know how many years, and it was always do they make the jump and but they're not the best anymore, or do they stay where they're at and consistently dominate, and so um, there's obviously like you said, like you and I, among a lot of people, are excited obviously to see them um, make that jump in the FBS, but then there's that other half who feels like they made a mistake and they're going to regret making the jump and should have just stayed at the FCS and dominated every year. So, like I said, I think there's going to be a really big chip on their shoulder in the fact that they get to do it in um, I don't want to say a bad conference, but obviously just a little bit of a weaker conference, but, things line up well to where, like you said, very realistically, they could get to that 9-10 win mark.
It's better, in my opinion, than what other schools are going into. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think when you have someone who is such a perennial FCS powerhouse, you have to put them in somewhere that's not like bare basic beginners that we've seen over the last a couple of years. I
Yeah.
think about Delaware, Kennesaw State, Missouri State, all these other schools that, yes, they made the jump to the FBS level. Good. I'm super happy that they're, joining that. I won't say elite, but the higher level football conferences and everything because it
Yeah.
gives them more money, that gives them more stuff. You can, get featured in, the college football video game, despite controversies, and everything of that matter. Like you get more visibility, which is obviously going to be important. But if you were again, like if you are NDSU, South Dakota State, if you're any of the Montanas, Montana State or Montana,
Mm-hmm.
um, or even schools that are making quick appearances in the top 25. I think to Sac State, because Sac State last year, before they played Nevada, was one of the top, I think it was like top 15 or top 20 FCS programs, depending on, who voted, who, you go to for your news on that stuff and everything.
Yeah.
So, these are schools that deserve to be in a place where it's not just, okay, we're going to take one step for 2 years, then we're going to jump to this conference, then we're going to jump to that one. Besides being unrealistic because of, collective agreements and everything, you deserve to play to the level that you are at right there. And
Yep.
it's not, there shouldn't be just baby steps to this if you are that good. And NDSU
Exactly.
truly is. That's why, like, I think they're the fourth highest, fourth lowest odds to win the Mountain West title this year. There's a
Mm-hmm.
reason why so many people were so ecstatic when they were given bowl eligibility this year, and all these different other stuff components that play into it too. So it's just, again, there's a little bit like there's a big dog fight when it comes to top of the Mountain West. UNLV will always be the front runner in the national mind, but again, don't be surprised if we see the Lobos, the Rainbow Warriors, the what's it called, the Bison, any of these schools really take that next level and be like, hey, like you might have Dan Mullen, you might have Jet, you might have a former 5-star high school quarterback, and all these other fancy stuff and everything compared to us, but
Mm-hmm.
we can still come and pop you in the mouth if we really need to,
Right.
and like as someone who, when it comes down to it, like I am a fan of a school, but I just love seeing good football.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me like, again, just jittery. It just makes me happy to see this stuff again. So
Yeah.
we'll just have to see how everything plays out. But I'm very, very hopeful to see some very, very good competition play in both these conferences this year. It just kind of have, again, I said it in the last segment, we'll have to see how everything goes. But again, I'm excited. I want to get on the football field again, bro.
Yeah, like you said, I mean that's in what 2 weeks. You have NFL starting up technically this week. I mean it already started up, but now is getting preseason kicked off. So football in general is just tis the season.
Amen to that, my friend. It is a great time to be a sports fan, specifically football, but still.
Yep.
So, alrighty. Well, I think this kind of sums up everything. So I guess we're
Yeah.
kind of done. So, well, thank you everybody for watching us ramble about Mountain West and Pac-12 stuff again.
Yeah.
I hope you all enjoyed. Feel free to see all of our other episodes and all of our other content down below. The ticker, I found out the ticker sometimes doesn't fully line up with how I'm seeing it sometimes too. So that's why I'm just like, I'm just gonna
Mm,
point to the bottom and say that find
yeah.
the link, find the Twitter,
Read
you'll
it
find
as you
it.
can. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. You've seen it for the past 40 minutes. You'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeah, feel free to check us out on Twitter or X at Mountain MWC Connection, and then our website is www.mwcconnection.com. We are all ramping up and getting into a very solidified schedule for the upcoming season. And I know I'm going to be doing some split coverage between Nevada and North Dakota State. Dom and I were going to take care of a lot of the stuff with Nevada together.
Hmm.
So will be a fun time overall. So, but feel free to check all of our stuff out below. Check out our other episodes both on YouTube and also on the website. And that's kind of sums it up. So,
Hmm.
again, thank you so very much for. I just hit the microphone. I was trying to not hit the microphone this episode too. Damn it. Um, but thank you all again so very much for watching. I hope you have a good rest of your day, your week, your weekend, and we'll see you all next week. So, take care, everybody.
Thank you.